You're the CEO of Soar, which is an AI studio.
Live life with your eyes wide open and see all the dumb, inefficient things that exist today everywhere you look. It's called myfamily.com, and we launched it December 26th, 1998. And within a few years, we had billions of searchable birth, marriage, death records. And that artificial or that super intelligence, that collective intelligence, now starts to assist each person in the company to do their job better and faster. Two things happened in September of 95. Number one, I knew that the web would be the future, not CD-ROM. Secondly, it hit me that we could put all the world's genealogy records on the internet without permission of anyone.
Paul, welcome to the podcast called The Look Back. It is a delight to have you and for us to catch up. You're the CEO of Soar, which is an AI studio, doing 15 or so AI companies with a goal of uplifting humanity for both work and life. And that just really resonates so well with me, especially juxtaposed against what we were just talking about. And I want to delve into that. But of course, first, I want to touch on not football. We could touch on that later again, but I think it'd be fun to dig in a little bit to your earliest endeavors with a little company called Ancestry.com. If I'm not mistaken, that was started in the late 90s. So what is that? Is that officially Internet 1.0 or is that 2.0?
Oh, it was definitely Internet 1.0. In fact, it was September of 95. I was running a CD-ROM publishing business. We were putting electronic books on CD-ROM.
What was that company?
That was called Infobases. So from 1990 to 97, my best friend and I ran Infobases. But I went to San Francisco in September of 95 to a conference called Internet Developers. And it was the second annual Internet Developers Conference. And I'd started using the Mosaic browser when it came out, and then Netscape, and you start to see that the world's computers are all going to be connected. Well, when I went to that conference, Keith, I knew that the CD-ROM industry would die over the next few years because everything would be on the web. Now we talk about the cloud, but back then it was like World Wide Web is taking over. And so I better get out of the CD-ROM publishing business. And the hardest part of our CD-ROM publishing business was licensing electronic books from authors or publishers, because we were in our 20s and these publishing houses were sometimes decades old or long older. And authors typically were older and they've put a lot of effort into writing their books. And we knew that the future was digital. And we didn't know smartphones were coming right around the corner, but we started to seeing handheld devices in the late 90s. But the hardest part of our CD-ROM business was negotiating rights. So two things happened in September of 95. Number one, I knew that the web would be the future, not CD-ROM. Secondly, it hit me that we could put all the world's genealogy records on the internet without permission of anyone because of something called public domain. Copyright law covers life of the author plus so many years. And there are a lot of books that are in the public domain from 1928 and before, but the genealogical birth, marriage, death records were just in the public domain. And so we started down that path, and within a few years, we had billions of searchable birth, marriage, death records. We took our search engine prowess, applied it to searching genealogical data versus electronic books. And it was just an incredible ride during that Web 1.0. Turned out to be bubble, and then that bubble bursted. But Ancestry has been successful really from day one.
Which is amazing, right? Because you look at all the companies that were around you, and you were the one that kind of managed to make it to the next level of play.
Well, I bet if you asked 100 people at Ancestry.com today, what was the secret to the success of the early years? I bet nobody would be able to answer that question.
I'm scratching my head, except to say you having that information and that information appealing to a pretty wide audience is a good place to start.
Well, if you think about it, software development, you would plan, you would execute. WordPerfect would come out with a new version every year or two. Everyone was like 1 to 2 year product development
nice shout
cycle.
Out to your fellow Utah companies too, by the way.
Yeah, well, I used to live in Utah. I live in Missouri now, so I should reference some of the great Kansas City companies, and I probably will. But Keith, what was interesting is when the light bulb came on that everything would be on the web, the light bulb also came on that you could update your website every single day and make the product better literally every single day. So our entire small team of 35 people started figuring out how can we add new genealogical data every single day. We can make it free. So we go find birth records from Massachusetts or New Jersey marriage records for some county. We would digitize it. We were spending millions of dollars digitizing and indexing content. But literally every day, Keith, for at least 10 or 15 years, Ancestry published one new database during every business day and made it free for 10 days to anybody in the world. We would email millions of registered users. They would come and try out that database for 10 days. After 10 days, it would go behind the paywall. Well, every Friday, we started publishing a big database. We called it the Wonder Base of the Week. So we would have database of the day, Wonder Base of the week. Everybody would get an email. All of our affiliates would promote that new content. Tons of people would come and try it out. They would take as many puzzle pieces as they could get from that free database for 10 days. And then all those databases go behind the paywall. And now that paywall, that premium subscription looks more and more appealing the bigger the database got. So we did that every day for at least 10 to 15 years. And that daily value creation is what made Ancestry successful right from the beginning.
Wow, that is interesting. So the learning there is really staying on top of your market for one.
Oh, things change so fast. I would say
Yeah.
there's quite a few lessons. Number one, do things that don't require permission. Public domain content is everyone's best friend if you think about it. Even those satellites that provide weather data, okay,
Right.
they're everything published by the federal government.
Yeah.
There's a lot of public domain content out there. There's also a lot of open source content and software out there. So any enterprising entrepreneur can find there's resources that are abundant everywhere that don't require permission. And then just with your choice, just with your agency, just with your imagination, you can create value from all those free raw materials. Doesn't require permission to go buy a domain name for $10 and form a corporation for a few $100s and decide you're going to create something of value. And now in the world of AI, Keith, there's so many companies that are starting to do brilliant things on top of this AI ecosystem using GPT APIs or open source large language models. There's so many opportunities for an entrepreneur who has an imagination to do things that don't require permission, that give you access to raw materials that are abundant, and now you can create value. Now, if you, like you said, if you're in tune with the market, if you're adding value every day, talking to customers, talking to prospective customers on a daily basis, if you're getting your site 1% better every day and you're starting to add users and revenue, my goodness, the opportunity is very big and the prospects are very bright for anyone that is focused on that kind of continual improvement to provide value to your customers.
Yes. Well, you were on a thread, though, while we started about the number of things that you learned and picked up on. Do you want to go back to that?
Well, for sure, one of them is continuous daily improvement.
Right.
Another one is the public domain. And then we touched on the fact that open source or kind of APIs that give you access to, you're building on top of billions of dollars of infrastructure investment. A lot of that didn't exist in Web 1.0. You're kind of buying your own hardware, hosting your own site. I mean, when we got a few $1 million invested from Compaq, we turned around and bought like $3 million of Compaq computers for our servers. And so then we co-located them in a co-location center. But early on, Web 1.0 was a lot of
Well, now you're doing
DIY.
all that. Now you're doing all that with cloud technology, and soon it'll be LLM and language models.
And I think if you incorporate through Stripe, through their Stripe Atlas program, they give you something like $50,000 worth of cloud credits from all these hosting services and SaaS companies. It's like, you know what? I actually don't know, Keith, why millions of people aren't dropping out of the corporate world and starting their own company. I think
the good news is a lot of them are, but I think I hear your point too. What a rich opportunity. But don't you need the idea? Don't you need to come up with the compelling reason? Or do you just feel like be an entrepreneur first and figure out the idea second?
My favorite way to be an entrepreneur is find a pain point that hasn't been solved for you yet, and then go solve it for yourself. And then broadcast that to lots of other people. Because if you've solved a problem in a unique way, so really live life with your eyes wide open and see all the dumb, inefficient things that exist today everywhere you look. Now,
It's 10 companies a day.
well, yeah, you could. And that's why we have a studio, is because we have so many markets where there's an obvious issue that can be solved right away with AI. So
Yeah.
we're actually taking the studio model. We're reusing the same technology building blocks 15 times. We're not building a new technology for each of the companies. We're just partnering with someone who's already in that space, who has content in that space, because AI is only as good as the content that it's utilizing. And so we'll be solving basically the same problem 15 different times in 15 different markets. So we're not an incubator where anybody can come with a new idea and we back you or whatever. We're a studio that will replicate a solution over and over again, aimed at different markets: health, finance, legal, education, sales, coaching, leadership, and faith, family, citizenship, and friendship. So we're taking kind of big chunks of the human experience and we're saying, how can we help uplift humanity in that category? And how does our existing technology stack, millions and millions of dollars, built by the same brilliant engineer that built Ancestry.com in the first several years? He wrote all the software that we build Ancestry on. Now he's written all the software that we're building Soar on. And in both cases, we had a great supporting cast and hired lots of people to grow the company. But we're doing some really fun things that will help, I hope, people live a better life, thrive at work, and flourish in all areas of life.
Yeah, so with the SOAR platform, you touch on a lot of areas. Many businesses will grow from this family tree, as it were. I'm mixing my metaphors.
Right, I
But
like that.
yeah, the pun was intended for sure. So my thought, though, with SOAR, it was more of a studio model where you were going to incubate some companies, but you're actually developing out a platform. Take me through an example or two.
Think about human communication and how important it is. Okay.
Right.
Before COVID, we almost always spoke with our coworkers in person, in office. We had meetings all the time, maybe a few hours of meetings a day. We would write memos and emails. So human communication is fundamental to developing, marketing, or selling or supporting anything. And so every company has products and services, but they are derived from us talking to each other. Now, post-COVID, and in a world where Zoom video conferencing and Microsoft Teams and Google Meet and Jitsi and WebEx and all these video conferencing platforms, imagine how smart AI can get if all the conversations and meetings that a company holds are recorded and transcribed and turned into a vector database where the AI can go look for content by meaning and concept, not just by keyword searching, although
Sure.
keyword searching is part of it. But imagine an AI platform that takes human communication inside of an organization, including all the calls you have with potential customers. They're recorded and transcribed and understood
Right.
by the AI. All of the calls you have with existing customers, including sales and support calls, the calls you have with your legal department, your finance department, your HR department. Imagine an AI that understands everything you're talking about wanting to do, everything you're offering now, and who's buying it and who needs support on it. And AI starts to become this super intelligence that's aimed at helping you build a better product, reach more customers, support them more fully, operate efficiently.
With all the intelligence built in already now through the past data that's been captured and powered up. So now when I get on the phone with you, I understand the 10 companies that you've been working with, what you've been doing the last few weeks, etc.
Exactly. If
Yes.
you think about artificial intelligence, the word artificial intelligence, I don't even like the phrase. First of all, it's really
Well,
machine learning.
it's
There
about as
is,
old as the internet too.
yeah,
So
yeah, but there is an argument that artificial general intelligence will someday emerge. I don't really know if it will, but I like to think of it as collective intelligence, because artificial intelligence is only as good as the human created training data that informs it. And so if AI can go and read every book ever published or every web page or every Reddit post or tweet, and it then starts to have a perfect knowledge of language patterns, what words precede other words, what words and phrases precede or follow other phrases. And the generative AI is just a probabilistic word creation engine. It actually doesn't know if it's true what it's generating, but it's using mathematical probabilities to answer any question you have. And all of us are surprised at how accurate its answers are, although we always see hallucination too. It just makes up false things that sound real because they follow language patterns of humans. Now, imagine a collective intelligence of all your employees based on everything that they've written or said over the past year or 5 years or 30 years. And that artificial or that super intelligence, that collective intelligence, now starts to assist each person in the company to do their job better and faster. Because that AI co-pilot that I use as a CEO or that my head of legal uses, that starts to be aware of facts that you didn't know about and brings them to your attention just in time. So humans can get better and more productive than ever before. And then we're on the cusp of not only having humans doing that work aided by a co-pilot that's a collective intelligence, but agents that can actually do the work for you under your direction, Keith, and come back and say, Keith, here's 5 tasks that were assigned to you in the last meeting. I can do 3 of them. Do you want me to have them done by tomorrow morning? Do you want to approve my work before I send out that email? And all of a sudden, we'll be orchestrating the agentive AI as well as the augmented human productivity boosts. And I feel like we're on the cusp of unprecedented prosperity, where small companies and large companies can be way more productive than we ever imagined humans could be, augmented by agents. And of course, Elon Musk's Optimus robots and the billion humanoid robots that he thinks we'll be buying and using to deliver products or to fix things or to do operations or whatever the robots are going to be doing. We have this opportunity to enter into this new era of productiveness. But the biggest problem to our earliest conversation is the lack of harmony and harmoniousness in our society.
Yeah.
If we have a spirit of abundance and a mindset that there's going to be enough for everyone, if we aren't greedy and territorial and polarized, instead, if we can actually embrace the future possibilities with an abundant mindset and with kind of grace and tolerance for people that are different from us or that don't see the world exactly through our lens, I feel like humanity's on the cusp of something beautiful. At the same time, AI gives power to bad actors that is also unprecedented. So it's that two-edged sword.
There's a divisiveness in our political, but also in our social, with a have and have not sort of reality that we have to face. How do we tighten up the divide, both from a digital standpoint, but from a social standpoint? Hey, you brought up some really great points. I think your namesake, the guy that helped co-found Microsoft, would be proud too. I think he'd be right in the middle of all this stuff with your co-pilot references. So speaking of, right, where this all goes, I want to tie together the plan with Soar. Okay, so does Soar then go to market as Soar, and I choose an area to access the different applications, or is Soar going to launch a myriad of companies that will have its own different go-to-market plans? Help me tie that together a little bit.
Yeah, so Soar will have its own corporate website, and we'll announce all the new corporations that are being formed and what products they are launching and what partnerships they are entering into. So, for example, one of our first companies was called citizenportal.ai, which now has about 1 million hours of videos from public meetings, local, state, and federal government meetings, all transcribed, all searchable, all turned into GPTs, so you can find out what's going on in your city, your county, your state. And the AI will go grab clips from meetings and come back and tell you, here's what's on the agenda, or here's what's been discussed. So Citizen Portal is our first. And we have some partnerships that we're announcing, and we're getting quite a few users, and we're very excited about Citizen Portal. Faith Portal is coming, and we are hoping to form a partnership with one of the world's largest faith tech companies. They've asked us to design 7 AI products that we could ship together to their huge customer base. And then the Family Portal and the Friend Portal are coming, and those will be social experiences aimed at connecting you to your living relatives in a deep and an ongoing way. And Friend Portal will be the first social network that tries to counterbalance the lie that Facebook tells the world that you have 1,000 friends or 5,000 friends, because in reality, you're very lucky, you're blessed if you have 3 or 4 real friends. The word friend was completely ruined by Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook. And everyone who thinks they're a
Among
friend,
other things.
if they, among many other things, in Britain, I think that 1/3 of divorces implicate Facebook in the divorce because of a old flame that was brought back to your attention, a high school sweetheart or whatever. So in the court proceedings, I read that about 1/3 of all marriage breakdowns implicated, at least to some degree, the Facebook platform. So Facebook moved fast and broke a lot of things, including society and civil discourse and the truth in the news media. It's like really bad how broken.
You're preaching to the choir. I think there's absolutely room for new social platforms based on what we learned worked and didn't work with the existing Twitters and Facebooks of the world.
And the friend portal will actually help you assess through some very powerful assessments who are my real friends and what role do they play in my life, and what role do I play in my friend's life? And then let's get off the screen. Yeah. Let's disconnect from digital and go deepen our friendships. We're recruiting several of the world's experts on friendship, and we will design experiences, offline experiences that will help people go from knowing someone as an acquaintance to having a friendship, to having a lifelong friendship. One academic told me, he said, "Do you know how many hours it takes to turn a new person into a friend?" I said, "No idea. Never have thought about the process of friendship. It's just like, who was my neighbor kid growing up that I played games with? Okay, those were my friends." There was just a lot of serendipity and it wasn't intentional. But he said, no, it takes 60 hours to have both people think that now I'm a friend with you, 90 hours for a deep friendship, and 200 for a lifelong friendship to form. This is based on averages of studies they've done. But he said you can expedite that. So if you're out there lonely and you're on the screen scrolling 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, streaming, scrolling, binge watching, and you're probably super lonely, hopefully the friend portal will soon be available. You'll be able to take some very well-created scientific assessments and think about the friends you have or think you have. Create a little guidebook or a map of who your friends are. And then what roles do friends play that you don't have anyone playing? There's a reason for your loneliness, your stress, your anxiety, your depression. And the way to solve it is not to be online. It's not to go to Facebook and pretend and search for likes and shares and digital social validation. It's to go fishing with someone or bowling with someone or have lunch or serve someone. It's to become a real human again, which many of us experienced before digital took over the world. And friendship could have a resurgence. Family ties could have a resurgence when the family portal is launched. And then citizenship could become more respectful. We hope to reward good behavior in our citizen portal and invite good behavior, which means talking to people you disagree with, but in a very civil way. The book Love Your Enemies by Arthur Brooks is a fantastic guidebook for all of us. And it starts by sharing the scary fact that most Democrats don't have a single friend who's a Republican, and most Republicans don't have a single friend who's a Democrat.
Yeah. No. Listening and giving room for disagreement is missing in the current debate. For sure. I want to switch now. It feels really organic, the way you moved from what you created at Ancestry over a dozen or 2 dozen years into this kind of a model, almost like the next version of the suite. Remember, we talked back in the day of software suites and things like that. The blended of products. It feels like that's a natural extension. Tell me how you made that leap at Ancestry and said, I got to go do something bigger and broader, and I want to see a little bit of social impact mixed in.
Well, with Ancestry, Keith, it was so frustrating. We had a very exciting subscription business model. We were growing our website by hundreds of millions of records every month, every quarter, and no venture capitalists were interested in Ancestry.com at all. We went to Sand Hill Road, blank stares. Okay. It was mostly young men in their 20s and 30s that are venture capitalists back then. And thankfully, there's now more diversity in VC. There's lots of big funds and small funds, but there weren't that many funds back then. And they tend to invest in things they understand. None of them had a clue why older people would go to a courthouse or to a cemetery looking for records of their deceased ancestors. It did not compute for them at all. So out of frustration, we were like, this is going to be a big company. This is going to be a .com success story, and no one will fund us. And we need a lot of funding to go raise money to digitize the world's genealogy records. We had 1,200 people in China in a company called Beijing Formax. A really incredible guy named Jack Blodgett started that company, and they were doing data entry of our scanned records to extract names, dates, and places from millions of images. And so we had a lot of funding needs to scale up Ancestry. And so as I was going through the process of evaluating how do we raise money for Ancestry, it struck me that our mission wasn't to connect people to their deceased ancestors only. Our mission was to connect families to each other. So we started talking about this new company, this new website in the same company called myfamily.com, and we launched it December 26, 1998. It was the first robust social network for families. It was private. You could have a social network for your nuclear family. You could have a social network for your extended family. About 10% of the family sites were actually groups of friends, college classmates, high school graduating classes, or corporations that wanted to use the new social technology. But myfamily.com immediately attracted 13 million in funding, then 35 million the next year, then 30 million the next year. So we raised money for the whole mission of connecting and strengthening families. Ancestry.com just happened to be the big money maker. And when the bubble burst and all of our investors were panicking, they decided to sideline myfamily.com. It was a crushing blow, having been the founder of the company and the instigator of both of those ideas. I felt myfamily.com was 10 times more viable as a long-term success story than Ancestry.com, because only 7% of Americans will take time to do genealogy research. 95% of people think that staying in touch with your living relatives is very important or somewhat important. And so it's 95% customer base or 7%. And then, of course, when myfamily.com was sidelined, years later, Friendster emerged, MySpace emerged, Facebook emerged.
Right.
We could have been Facebook scale, but with a mission to connect and strengthen families, not a mission to move fast and break things. Okay, so to answer your question, I've never really been a hardcore techie or a research developer. I'm a platform entrepreneur. I look at what new technology platforms are emerging that are going to become useful to billions of people, and then I jump on each wave. So I'm really about mission and applying good content and good experiences to create community. So content and community on the latest platform. Right. So when that was CD-ROM, we were publishing religious content, educational content, legal content. When it was the web, we were doing genealogical content and creating social networks for families. Today, in the world of AI, where AI is going to replace most computer interfaces, we won't have keyboards and devices as much as we'll have a human voice interface and a super intelligent AI that can answer any question, do any task, and augment our ability to imagine and create. So what we're going to try to do is just carve up all the areas of the human experience that matter: family, faith, citizenship, education, the workplace experience, leadership, health, legal, finance. We are also going to do a sports portal and a music portal someday. It's not on our immediate roadmap, but if you think about the joy of living, a lot of joy comes from watching or participating in sports, watching or participating in theater, in music. There's inspirational concerts, and there's so many transcendent experiences that humans can have. And the AI can be your curator partner and your perfect memory recall partner. So if you want to relive a moment from the 49ers glory days, You ask the computer and it plays the clip. Or like, just there's going to be so many ways for AI to make your human experience better, as long as it doesn't control your time and attention. It's not trying to sell you things or pursue some advertising
Those are
business
all going
model.
to happen. We just have to be smart how we manage it. Yeah.
Exactly. There will
And the
be AI
notification.
platforms that
Yeah.
are super powerful that will try to
Right.
sell your time and attention to the highest bidder on an advertising model, and that will be extraordinarily detrimental to your life mission and well-being.
Oh, this is
And
great. Love it.
so
Love
yeah,
it.
we have big plans. We hope to go public someday on the long-term stock exchange, if that's ever possible, if that Eric Ries invention is
Right.
ever finished.
Well, look,
But
if it still builds something sustainable and strong, it can go on the old NASDAQ.
well, the problem with short-term with Nasdaq or NYSE is the good CEOs and the good CFOs and the other C-level executives that are running a good company that's doing good for the world and good for their customers
Yeah.
have enormous pressure put on them by shareholders and by activist investors to never miss your quarterly earnings number, even by a penny. If
Sure.
you do, you get crushed by the market. Your stock price goes down 10, 15, 20%. So why do people do mass layoffs? To avoid short-term earnings disappointments.
You and I have both lived those things. Hey, I want to move to a little bit of short question and answer. But this has been great. I really have enjoyed the discussion of working through Ancestry. With your background, I've got to ask you some of those moments where things got a little bit crazy. I talk in this podcast, of course, is called the look back. So when you think back on Ancestry, there had to be the one or two moments for you where you said that, oh shit moment. Holy, what are we going to do? Or how are we going to make payroll? Or we got to fix the product? Or we got to change direction. What was the one or two big pivots for you, Paul?
Oh, I could probably go through dozens. The
Yeah.
one that stands out is that my childhood friend Darren Thane became the CTO of Ancestry.com. And as we were going through our bake off, trying to pick the banker, we actually chose Merrill Lynch to take us public in early 2000. And Darren and I were sitting in a company meeting together. The whole crew was there, and he said to me, "Paul, what does it feel like to be worth $100 million?" Because on paper,
Yeah.
my founding stock in Ancestry at that point was $100 million worth, and it was probably soon going to be several $100 million. And I remember, like, not really having a reaction to him. Like, I don't know, I don't feel any different. Well, within 3 months, I the company's IPO was postponed. The venture capitalists brought in a new CEO and CFO that had delayed the IPO, and by the end of that year, they wanted to take Ancestry into bankruptcy. They literally were ready to bankrupt the company. Because if you go through bankruptcy, what happens? All your venture capital stockholders get wiped out, all your common shareholders get wiped out, but the management team gets to raise new capital, turn the company around, and their stock options get reloaded. So there's like this tension between three groups: the founders, the venture investors, and the management team. Well, guess who's really in charge at that point? The management team is calling the shots day to day. And they wanted to take us into bankruptcy. So I had a series of experiences. I think it's divine intervention that enabled us to postpone the bankruptcy, raise a Series E funding round, fire the CEO and CFO with the help of some Utah investors who were amazing in the process, relocate the company back to Utah. And by August of 2001, we were cash flow positive again for the second time. We had been cash flow positive July of 98 before we raised any outside funding. We raised 90 million. We got cash flow positive again August of 2001, but it was no longer a recognizable company for me. I was no longer a leading executive there. It was just so. I would say
That's a great story, because a lot of people who are starting companies and selling their equity for dollars and growing the company, and they see these stars in their eyes when they hear the valuation comments, but they don't realize some of the risks that lie ahead, and they're inevitable. You're always going to come into some point where there's a decision on, do we need to replace this key person? Do we need to take this money? Do we need to sell this asset? There are some fundamental things that can change the course and direction of the business. And you just shared one that I think is a little bit hidden from most entrepreneurs, especially at the early stage.
I mean, the first time you raise venture capital, you have no idea what you're doing. They've done it 100 or 500 times, and they know all the ropes. They know that the vanilla term sheet is super investor favorable, and they know they're taking advantage of you, but they probably don't disclose that fully. And I'm sure there's a few exceptions, but
Yeah.
I had a really rough experience with venture capital. Looking back, though, Keith, I feel like when I write the definitive history of ancestry.com, I'll actually use our platform to do it, Keith. I'll interview
Love it.
50 or 100 of the most key figures from 1996 to 2001 or 2. And I'll interview them for an hour on our Soar Scribe platform. You can go to soarscribe.com and sign up for free. And then I'll interview them, get a transcription of everything they said, and then I'll have ChatGPT help me outline all the chapters of the book and all the quotes from those 50 or 100 people. I don't want it to be just my perspective of
Right.
the founding, even though it was my idea, and I was in every board meeting for 5 or 6 years, and I was the head of content acquisition at first, and then the head of marketing. So I think I know more than anyone else. But guess what? I don't know more than everyone else combined. And
Well, it's
so,
also perspective, right? It's also different
and
perspective.
there's definitely different perspectives. So the definitive history of ancestry will be co-created
Can we
by
call it the
dozens of people.
genealogy of ancestry, please?
We
Yes.
probably could. But I
Yes.
just want to give a shout out to John Ivey, who was the
Yeah.
data prep engineer who put the first 3 billion records on ancestry.com by himself.
I
Guess
I
what?
I tell you what, I'm really resonating with your point about find that public domain content, that open source technology that you can use with AI. Talk about building blocks that'll help you scale quickly to MVP, but also go to market.
Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly. Exactly. John Ivey, Richard Stoffer, he wrote the first 34 applications that built Ancestry from nothing to something extraordinary. And then within 2 years, we had 60 engineers, but he wrote the first 34 programs. He was the only coder for 2 years. We had Lou Zooks, who was the most beloved person in the genealogy industry that helped us find all the content sets. She was a
Okay,
publisher
okay. I
of
can't let you roll through all the credits. I know you're a very humble guy. I appreciate all of that. I do have another question though. I want you to give me a thought or two for young entrepreneurs, or I should say, new entrepreneurs. Let's not be ageist here, who have thoughts about starting something, but have that moment where, you know, I'm I'm scared. I don't know how do I get started, have that moment of hesitation to jump in and do it. What do you tell those entrepreneurs?
I think Don Clifton, who is the psychologist who created the Strengths Finder assessment to help people find out what their natural innate talents were, and he wrote a book called Soar with Your Strengths in 1992. His philosophies about your personal growth and development are more true than any philosopher or psychologist I've ever read. I think you should study Don Clifton's book, Soar with Your Strengths. Number two, find out, take a $20 assessment from Gallup called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. Find out what your top strengths are, your patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Find out what you're really good at without even trying,
Love it.
and then try to play to your strengths every day. Don Clifton also taught that strengths only develop in relation to another human being. You need people that believe in you, a coach, a mentor, a coworker, a co-founder. You can't do it on your own. Nobody is an island. And so you need someone who's honest with you, but also who believes in you, knows your strengths as well as you do, and helps you play to your strengths and helps you offset your many weaknesses, because we all have so many fatal flaws. They can only be fatal if you let them be. But you need systems and people to help you manage around your weaknesses, but play to your strengths, surround yourself with other people who are very self-aware, play to their strengths, but most of all in today's world, use AI every chance you can to augment and supplement and supercharge your own capabilities. If you think about the Industrial Revolution, where the guilds, who were great craftspeople and they could make, handcrafted products or sew clothing or rugs or whatever, all of a sudden machines come out that are 10 or 100 times more productive. So there's this disruption happening. AI is about to be that disruption unless you are one of those entrepreneurs that is using AI. So buy some books about AI, follow some smart people on YouTube and Twitter,
Yeah,
try things. Even if you don't code, you can use AI to code. Even
love
if
it.
you're not a good marketer, you can use AI to do the marketing. Pretty soon you'll have an army of agents at your beck and call. And if you can learn to communicate clearly what is needed, those people, those agents will put it into action what you need. And as Sam Altman is predicting, there will be a one-person company that becomes a billion-dollar company, a unicorn company, or a small company that becomes a unicorn company in the not too distant future.
Yeah, it's possible. Folks, this is Paul Allen with Soar, founder of Ancestry. Paul, we can find you at it's soar.ai.
It's soar.com, but my email address is the shortest one I've had of my whole life. I was so happy. I remember when Josh Koppelman, a great venture capitalist from Philadelphia, started half.com, and I had lunch with him in San Francisco in 99. He sold half.com to eBay for like 350 or $400 million. But
Oh,
his email was josh@half.com. And I thought, that is so short and sweet. I was so jealous. Well, now I have Paul at Soar, SOAR.com. Feel free to reach out. We're launching a founder portal. We're launching an AI co-pilot for entrepreneurs. We think that the success rate of startups can double or triple, that the failure rate of startups maybe can be cut in half when you utilize the powers of recording and transcription and AI agents to help you get more done more quickly, fail faster, succeed, and scale faster. And I think there's a beautiful opportunity for you. Take the initiative, believe in yourself by learning what your strengths are, know that you're unique, you can do things, and you know people that nobody else in the world can do and know, and you can become an inspiration. You can build products and services that meet the needs of one company or 1,000 companies, and you can carve out your own bright future. Don't neglect your family and your friends. If you're a person of faith, keep going. If you're not a person of faith, just know that the data shows that people of the faith community live longer, happier lives than people that are not in the faith
there
community.
you
It
go.
might be, it might be a social thing. I think it's both a social thing and a divine creator thing. But just open your eyes to the possibilities. Don't be afraid. I was a Russian major in college. I had never taken a business class or a technology class in my entire life. The only class I had in K through 12 or college that prepared me for an entrepreneurship career was my typing class in 8th grade.
I love it. That's great. Paul, Paul Allen, folks. What a great catch up. And I wish you tons of success. If there's anything I can personally do to support the platform, you and I will continue this conversation then. And yeah, onward and upward. One final favor, Paul. Can you let us win it this year?
Absolutely not. I
Oh,
think
Keith.
it's in the cards. I looked in the crystal ball, Keith. It's
Oh,
3P for the Chiefs. Andy Reid is the funnest coach of all time, if not the most successful. He'll be both. By the way, Keith, if you'd
yeah.
like a free transcription and search engine of all of the podcasts you've ever done all these years, my team will do that at no charge to you. We could just upload it all. You'll have a search engine. Your team can then find a clip from any of the past interviews, highlight it, and share it on social media. We'd be happy to provide you
That's
and
a great thing, and
any other podcaster
I would
with
be
that.
happy to provide the podcast back to your platform with the founder interviews and the other things that I've done. So
Oh, fantastic. That would be
anything I can,
awesome.
yeah,
Okay, because you want distribution because you want to help people. Your abundant mindset is very evident to me. Thank you.
yeah. I have no restrictions. This is mine, and this is a passion that I really enjoy. And you have a wonderful spirit about you, and so let's uplift a little bit together.
Thank you, Keith. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
All right, great talking to you.